John here, but it is the phone number to call in is 316-462-3673. So let's go to the phones. Let's talk to John. John, you're on live with Under the Hood. Go ahead.
Hey, I've got a question. So I've got a 96 C1500 Chevy, and at a dead idle, the oil pressure gauge indicates below about 15 PSI. When I accelerate, it jumps, of course, to 40 and beyond. Do you think that the oil pressure sending unit needs to be changed, or do you think the oil pump needs to be changed?
So how many miles are on this thing?
About 270,000.
Yeah. So there's obviously a couple different things that I would like to discuss with your question. So first of all, the best thing to do is put a manual gauge on that truck, and that's going to be the easiest way to identify if you actually have that for oil pressure or if there's an issue with the sending unit. And then let's say it is oil pressure. That's kind of a discussion, but now let's talk about the sending unit for a little bit, because it could be the sending unit, it could be the gauge itself from that side of things, from the electrical side of it. And so there would need to be really some diagnosis that would take place to determine on the electrical side what's going on, and then same on the actual the oil side of it. So with that number of miles, we could have an issue with your tolerances in the engine are surely is not as tight as what they once were when it was new.
Maybe just a little worn, 270,000 miles.
A little bit worn, and to where maybe it's something that just running a little bit thicker of an oil would help you in the interim from that side of it. A pump, they do have like high volume pumps that move more volume of oil, not necessarily more pressure, but higher volume. They have higher pressure pumps from those sides of things as well. And then the other thing is, I'm guessing you're going to be probably pretty surprised at what the minimum spec of oil pressure is for that engine. Without looking it up, I wouldn't know the exact number, but I'm going to guess it may be 8 PSI, something like that, on a minimum spec. So the very first thing I would do would be to put an oil pressure gauge on it to see exactly what you have. If it's on the oil side,
yes,
if it's on the oil side and that's all you're generating for pressure, first thing I'd do is try a little bit heavier weight of oil with a vehicle with that many miles.
Well, I put high mileage 1030 in it now, and I was thinking about putting a oil stabilizer in it. And in the morning when I started, it gets to about 50, stays there. And of course, after I've driven it for an hour or so, then it'll shoot on down. And so I definitely don't want to lose oil pressure.
Sure. And so it's really the weight of oil that would make a difference, and not so much the additives from that side of things. So if you're getting a little bit thicker oil in it, it would increase the pressure a little bit from that side. So Phil, I don't know if you got any.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you got to get a manual gauge and just check it, see if the electrical side of that gauge is working. But I've always used this situation, an example. Your engine has valleys in it where the oil runs through it, and think of it as a river. As it gets over time, the river gets wider and wider, so it takes more area to pick up that room to run the water through your engine. But once we see what that oil pressure is like at hot with a manual gauge, we know that's working right, then we can determine which way we're going to go. But I'm going to almost bet you that engine's just got some wear on it and got some extra stuff. You can put some thicker oil in the thing and keep going. But I would still want to put
the gauge on it just to verify. So we can throw a diagnostic onto your package for calling into the show and put that manual gauge on there and just verify just exactly what is going on, and if it is in fact the oil side or the electrical side of it. So I'm going to guess probably,
because I believe this oil pump's up in the oil pan. Wouldn't I have to go through the oil pan or raise the engine or disconnect the transmission, one or the other? So it's pretty mechanical, out of my pay grade.
Yeah. So that you are correct as far as the oil pump of that thing being in the oil pan. Is it a 4-wheel drive?
No, sir.
Okay. So some of those, and you said it was a 96, some of them had a removable cross brace where that oil pan was, and you would have to remove the oil pan. But as far as like pulling the engine or transmission, you could get it out of there without without having to do that. But then I was trying to think about when they did that. I think 96 is on the earlier end of it, and I think you do have to at least like raise the motor up. I'm not gonna say completely remove it, but once we, like I said,
And I thought you said on the phone here, I thought you said you.
oh no
can
no no
do
no no
that,
no no
not
no
me.
yeah
Good call there, buddy.
no, yeah, I wasn't and with us throwing that diagnostic on there, we can look at those things and give you options as far as what it would take to do it and all that stuff. So
Yeah, let's get it in here. Let's get a manual gauge on that thing and see which way we need to go.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
No, hey, thanks for the call, buddy.